All right, well, good morning or afternoon to all of you, depending on where you're from here. So my name is Tyler Hall. I'm currently the past president of CUSC from Carleton University, and I'm going to be walking us through today a little bit on how to sign up for CUSC and some of the decision points that you'll need to make along the way to, and hopefully give you some understanding of how to approach these decision points. And we're going to do a little bit of a walkthrough as well of the registration form and just test it out so that you can see it and have a better understanding, so that when you go to register yourself, or if you're considering registering yourself, that you'll have a better understanding of what the options are to you today. So just for a couple of practical things. So we are recording this webinar. We are doing so that people who aren't able to attend today will be able to review this. So just want to make everyone aware of that. As well, if you have questions at any time, you're feel free to drop them into the chat. My inability to multitask is complete, so I will not be able to look at the chat. However, my partner in crime from the King's University and president of CUSC, Gun Peeler, is here. He's going to be helping to manage, so he may be answering some of the questions in the chat for you, or he may be raising them at the end for me so that we can make sure that everything gets fully addressed for you. But I know how it is. It's sometimes you have a question and you don't want to wait 20 minutes to say it at the end. So feel free to just drop it in the chat. We may not get to it immediately, but I promise we will get to your questions. And hopefully that makes it easy for you today. With that, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to go through a little bit of a presentation and a little bit of a live demo. So you're going to see both of these things here today, and hopefully gives you some perspective and information that you'll need to be able to sign yourself up for CUSC. So now, all right, so here we are. And you will probably from time to time hear some howling of a cat in the background. I apologize, I wish I could fix that, but she is relentless. So, and she loves to join meetings apparently. So apologies for that. All right, so let's get started with our webinar here today. So we're going to start by giving you just a quick overview of what CUSC is. So I know that some of you have participated in CUSC maybe a few times, maybe you haven't participated in a while, or maybe this is your first time participating in CUSC. Regardless, welcome. CUSC is stands for the Canadian University Survey Consortium, and we are the longest standing provider of undergraduate student surveys in Canada. We are proudly Canadian, and we have a rich history of understanding the undergraduate student population in Canada, surveying them to really contribute both to institutional understanding of your student populations and also to the national conversation as well. So we're going to start with a little bit of over here. So CUSC was actually founded in 1994. We are a member-governed nonprofit consortium. That means that the membership, which membership is anyone who signs up for a membership who is a degree granting institution and pays the membership fee in a given year, is a member of the consortium. And we are governed by our members, and we're a nonprofit consortium, meaning that we do this to give back to you, our members. We have 3 surveys which go on a cycle. Again, they're all undergraduate focused. So we have the first year student survey, which focuses on reasons why students may have chosen that particular university, and their transition to university. That's the one that we're offering this year. There's the middle year survey. The middle year survey focuses on some issues related to transition and persistence. And then there's the final year survey, which focuses a lot on career aspirations, plans after graduation, is often used as one of the best sources of information on student debt in this country as well. The 3 surveys are meant to be a suite. There's a number of questions that are consistent throughout them, so that you can track maybe individual students as they flow through the programs, or maybe just the student life cycle just conceptually as you think moving from first to middle to final years, and understanding how their experiences and satisfaction may change over that time. As I mentioned, talking about members, universities may become members to the consortium. To do so, you pay the membership fee, you have an active data licensing and membership agreement, and you are eligible to become a member of the consortium. And other institutions who may not meet the definition of what is eligible as a member are able to participate as non-members. We'll talk a little bit about what the distinction is and why that matters to you. And even if you are eligible to become a member, you may choose to participate as a non-member, but it comes with certain trade-offs as well. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And at this time as well, there are two collaboration groups that we have set up. We have the Alberta Collaboration Group and the Maritime Collaboration Group. This doesn't need to necessarily be exhaustive. If you are outside of those two and you would like to make a collaboration group, that's something that's possible as well. But it would be something that you would need to organize yourself with perhaps some other institutions as well. There is a minimum size to the collaboration groups as well. So the CUSC process, so we're going to walk through a little bit from start to finish, from the time that you would register for CUSC all the way through till the times that you received your data from us, and give you a little bit of an understanding of how that works. So the first step would obviously be registration. That's mostly what we're here to talk through today, but we'll go through the other points as well. There's the campaign preparation, which you probably are familiar with if you've done any other surveys. This is getting yourself ready to send out your invitations, getting all the logistics in order for sending out your survey, doing any communications regarding awareness or things like that. Then you have your sample submission. This is when you pull together the students who would be surveyed. Finally, you have, or next you have the campaign where you actually do administer the survey, and we have Nicholas from PRA here, who is our survey contractor, who does the bulk of the survey administration for us. Then the reports come after that. So after your survey runs and is administered, it closes. PRA pulls together the data for us, and they generate a number of reports, a number that are standard to the base package, and a number that are optional as well that you can choose to purchase. And for those who are in a consortium or in Alberta, there's also the provincial data or the consortium data as well, which we're not really going to talk so much about today because that only applies to those who are either in the Alberta collaboration group or the MPHEC collaboration group. So in terms of registration, so registration is actually now open. You can go do that at any point. We ask that people complete the registration by the 10th of December is the date that we've set up. This just allows us to plan better and make sure that we're able to slot everyone in. We do often extend registration for those who maybe are taking a little longer in their decision points. I know sometimes it's not entirely up to you at your institution, that you may need to go through several levels of approvals, and may have had various committees that want to weigh in on this. So, you know, this isn't a hard and fast date. We have often accepted quite late registrations based on what we're able to do and what we're able to offer. But it is a bit first come, first serve. So we do ask that you try and register by December 10th to make sure that you're able to get the windows that you want for administering your survey. The website is there. Presumably you also got a link to our website through the invitation to participate in today's webinar. So you can use that email as well to get to our website where you can find information and sign up. And just a few other considerations. 3 things that may slow you down that it's good to start considering right now. One is a research ethics review. So I recognize this isn't necessary at all institutions. A number of REBs view CUSC as something that is not research-based and is entirely for quality assurance purposes. And so they grant them an Article 2.5 exemption under the Tri-Council policy. But I also understand that this isn't universal to institutions and that some institutions, REBs, require research ethics approvals for all surveys. So if this is something that is required at your institution, or if it's something that you don't know if it's required at your institution, it might be worth checking with your REB to see if they take an Article 2.5 exemption view on this. And if this is something that you need to do, we would absolutely recommend getting this process started now, because depending on your institution, it can be a bit of an onerous process. It can take some time. So we recommend getting started on that soon. If you are a new CUSC member, meaning that you have never been a member of CUSC before, and you are going to be participating as a member in this year's survey, we do require a data licensing and membership agreement. The data licensing and membership agreement is really an important document for all of us. The reason we're able to do this as a consortium is because we're all able to be governed by this data licensing and membership agreement, which allows us to have trust with one another, that we are sharing data and that everyone that we share data is going to use it in a consistent and safe way to make sure that our institutional identity and autonomy is respected and protected. And so before anyone can ever receive any of the master data files as a member, which include all the data from all participating member institutions in that year, you are required to have that data licensing and membership agreement. So if you are a new CUSC member and as part of your sign up, we recommend getting started on that process right away. Again, depending on your institution, this may require different levels of approvals. I know at some institutions this requires to go through the legal counsel, and so that can often be a bit of a slow process for you and maybe a little bit of a time drag. But I recommend getting started on this process as well if you're a new member to CUSC. And finally, the last one's optional. This is something that some institutions have asked for to protect their population files, and because of requirements from either the privacy or their legal counsel, which is a confidentiality agreement with our contractor, Prairie Research Associates. This just is, we don't necessarily require this. PRA does treat all the information we have confidentially, regardless of whether or not you have this agreement. But we understand that for liability reasons that some institutions want to have this confidentiality agreement. So that option is available to you, and more information about that can be found in the procedures manual as well. So with that, I'm going to pop over to the registration page, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk through some of the next steps after you register. So just give me a moment here while I figure out my Zoom to stop sharing and share a different screen here. All right, so this is the CUSC website. If you're not familiar with it, and this is where all the information that you need to make the decision points about taking part and to register itself can be found. So this is just the main page. The taking part page is the one that you'll want for today, because that's the one that is where registration is linked from. There's some information here about it. I'm not going to read through it today because this information is included in what we're going to be talking about. From, I think, everyone here, it probably falls under this first box, which is just your normal registration form. Because of the Alberta Collaboration Group, there are Alberta colleges and technical institutes that can participate. If that does apply to you, which again, I don't think it is anyone here, this would be the link for you here. But otherwise, it's this red button here that you'll want to click on. Before I do that, there's a couple other documents that are listed below that may be really helpful for you in your decision points. First one is the price list. This just gives you an overview of all the prices before you sign up, so you can take a look at that. The first year questionnaire. So this is the survey. So if you're still in the decision-making phase and want to understand what's being asked in this survey, the questionnaire is linked there for you so that you can review that. The procedures manual, I have that open in a separate tab, and I would encourage you probably to download that and make sure that you have that available as part of your registration process. It contains a lot more information than the registration form could allow, and is really detailed, and I think a really comprehensive document to help walk you through it. It also includes the registration form at the end. I try not to scroll too much for the sake of your eyes, but at the end of the document, the registration form is there. So if you want to review and see everything that is in the registration form before you start, so that you don't need to get halfway through and realize, I haven't decided on this, I don't know what to do, and I don't want to back out. You can go and you can review the entire registration form before you get started, and make sure that you have all the information you need to register. So that is there for you as well. And this document is it's a labor of love for us. It's a lot of the really useful information. And again, I would strongly recommend having that open alongside your registration form. And finally, there's a module this year. This module is optional and free of charge. And this module is available to those who would like. And it is on course delivery and assessment. And the idea of the module this year is that with the number of changes that have happened to the way that teaching and learning are being done at our institutions regarding hybrid, flexible, online, in-person, etc., that this module is meant to give you some information as well as comparative information for members on the way that the different course modalities are offered and student satisfaction with them. So the idea is that it's information that's helpful, especially in the current climate, but certainly extending beyond our current situation in the midst of this pandemic and the changes on higher ed with it. So if you would like to review the questions that are included in the module, again, the module is free of charge, but realize that you would probably like to see what the questions are before you make that decision. You can review those here to do that. So all that said, I'm going to jump right into the registration form, and we're going to walk through it and go through it together here. So the first page is pretty basic information. So it's information about your institution. So I work in OIRP at Carleton University. And there's my address, and that's basically the first information. So it's just a little bit of name and address there for us. Pretty straightforward. Second page has the primary contact name. Now, I'll stress here that the primary contact name should be the person who is responsible for the day-to-day administration of your survey. So I know at a lot of institutions, people have in the past put maybe their president or their provost. Unless your president or provost is going to be involved in the day-to-day administration of the survey, you probably don't want them as your primary contact. The primary contact is there to resolve any issues related to your survey. It's the one that CUSC or PRA will be reaching out to as your deadlines approach to make sure that we get the information we need. So I'd recommend someone probably from either maybe your student services or your institutional research or whoever's overseeing the survey on a day-to-day basis, that they be the one who's the primary contact. So in this case, I'm gonna put myself here and my email address. Just re-enter that to confirm, and my phone number there. Secondary contact, this is an optional field, but definitely recommended if possible for you. And this is so that we can have someone else to contact. It's just a good practice to have a second contact there for you in case you're not available, or in case we need a more urgent decision if there are some issues that come up during the administration. And then finally, there's a financial contact information. And this is to allow us to get started on maybe setting up, not the email there. This is to allow us to get started on the maybe the electronic funds transfer if we're setting that up for you, or being able to reach out and to ensure payment for the survey as well. So that's just something to hopefully make the administration a little bit easier for you. Phone number in there. All right. And that brings us to kind of our first decision point in the registration process, which is whether you're going to be participating in the survey or you're just going to be purchasing a membership. We recognize that some people just purchase a membership and they don't participate in the survey. Now, if you participate here, you'll still have the option to purchase a membership. So this isn't where you're deciding whether or not you're going to be a member. This is deciding whether or not you're participating in the survey or a membership only. And the only is the key word there. So the second option would be for those who just want to renew their membership but aren't going to be participating in the survey this year. So since we're here to talk about participating in the survey, that's what we're going to select today. And then the question comes up, will you be participating as a CUSC member or a non-member? And you'll see it references the procedures manual section as well to try and make this process easier, so that if you don't remember today and you're a little uncertain, you can go and, we've got that second tab here that I've got open on the procedures manual. We can go to section 2 and we can review what it says. So if you're participating as a member, I've talked a little bit about the requirements of membership, which again is the paying of the membership fee, the data licensing and membership agreement being signed, and I think I missed the third one. Anyways, and registering as a member. Participating as and being a degree granting institution, that's the third. Participating as a non-member is available to you as well, regardless of whether you meet the qualifications for membership. It's a decision point. By participating as a member, you are agreeing to share your information with all consortium members. And as a result, you also get a master data file, which allows you to do comparison to that master data file. The cost of participating as a member is $500. The cost of participating as a non-member is $250. So it's a $250 price difference. And if you qualify for membership, it's really probably the best $250 you can spend in surveys, because the value of that master data file to be able to do analysis to better understand the context of how your institution fits in is just so valuable. That's why we exist as a consortium, as an organization here. And we really do think that that membership is quite important for your survey participation. So if you're eligible to participate as a member, I would encourage you to do that. All right, and that brings us into some of the survey information here now. So the first question is, what is the total population of students at your institution who meet the definition of first-year student in the procedures manual? And again, it lists the section, so you can go back and review that. Given that the definition is for those who are enrolled in the winter term, probably a large number of us are going to have estimates. If you provide an estimate, we'll come back to you at a later point to try and get an actual count. The actual count is important for us because that allows us to weight the survey responses back so that we can ensure that institutions aren't being over and underrepresented in the master data reports that we put out as well. So at this point, I don't have a good check. I didn't look it up before this webinar, so I'm just going to say it's an estimate of 5,000, and that allows me to move on with the process here, and I can come back at a later time. I would want to come back in January after student registration had completed, because of registration patterns, the way they work at my institution here, that I would want to provide a better estimate in mid-January, late January anyway. So I'm gonna put that in as an estimate for now. The second part of this page says, what is the total number of students of the number above that you are selecting for the standard sample of the survey? Now, 1,000 is this traditional standard sample, but you can choose anything. You can choose to have a very small survey, or you can choose to have a census. That decision is entirely up to you, depending on the needs of your institution. For us, we typically do a moderate size sample. We like to do a little bit of breakdowns and do some statistical testing internally. So, if we do 1,000, it's not quite enough for our needs, but we don't need to do a full census. So today, not 25,000, 2,500 is what I would choose. But again, that is entirely up to you. Also recognize that for smaller institutions, you may not even have 1,000 for a standard sample. That if your first year cohort as defined above isn't 1,000 students, then obviously you wouldn't be able to do that. C2, it says, will you be surveying a special sample? That's listed in the procedures manual section 5.4 there. A special sample can be a couple of different things. It can be any student that you want to include in the survey that doesn't meet the definition of the standard sample. We'll go through a little bit about what that definition is in a moment, but it's important that we all come to the survey with the same definition of what this standard sample is. That allows us to have good comparable information across the country. So if you have some pockets of students who you'd really love to survey, that's absolutely okay if they don't meet the standard sample criteria, but we just ask that you include them as a special sample so that our sampling approach is uniform across all our member institutions. Now, in addition, you might also want to do an oversample. Maybe particularly there's a specific degree program that you want to dig into more information, or there's something related to some student demographics or various other considerations on something that you'd like to oversample, right? So part of the sample is that this would be a random sample of 2,500 students, but if I want to oversample maybe students in engineering this year because I'm concerned about some things there and I want to dig deeper into that data, I might say, yes, I'd like to include a special sample and do an oversample, even though they do meet the eligibility criteria and the standard sample. So it can be one of those two things are the most common reasons why people might do a special sample. But so I'll say yes, and I'll just say for sake of doing it that we're going to have 500 students in my special sample this year. So that would be a total of 3,000 students here. Next, when would you like the survey to start? And when would you like the survey to end? And you can see there's some qualifications here. So between January 10th and March 18th of 2022 and ending before April 10th. So I'm just going to pick these dates here. Oh, and this lovely box is going to block me. So that's not what I want. I'm going to go to the end of March. And that again is up to you depending on how long you want the survey to be in the field. If you have very specific dates on when you'd like the survey to start, if there's a date that you have in mind right now that you would really like to lock in that date, that maybe January 17th is your date and you really want to make sure that you're able to do that, I would say two things. One, I would recommend registering early to make sure that if that happens to be a really popular date, we're only able to launch so many on a day. I mean, it is several, but if you really want that date, I recommend you register and lock that date in sooner rather than later. And second, it's really important that you're going to meet the timing considerations for submitting your sample file, your email, text, and any additional questions that you might have on time to make sure you're able to launch within that window. So if you have a date that's really important, then following those times are going to be particularly important for you. C5 asks when the start and end of your winter break is. That will be important because for the most part, institutions don't really want email reminders going out in the middle of their winter break. So you would indicate on this when your winter break would be starting and ending. All right, C6 here. So will your institution be using incentives? We generally recommend using incentives. We've done some experiments and just found generally that having an incentive of some kind is absolutely helpful in getting a good response rate for your survey. So there's more information in Procedures Manual 6 there, Section 6 there about that if you'd like to read more. And when would you like PRA to send you a list of respondents drawn for incentives? So you can select a date here, and I'm just going to say, the 1st of April. Basically after the survey has closed for me. That's when I'm interested in having it. But you might want that at a different time point for you. In which language would you like to receive reports and data? You can select either English, French, or both, depending on the needs of your institution. Carleton is predominantly an English institution, so I'm going to select English for us today. And when would your institution like to be invoiced for the items that you order? We recognize that some people want to get it in with a specific budget year, either this budget year or perhaps next budget year, depending on what you have available to you. So you're able to specify maybe either before March 31st, after March 31st, or if there's a specific day, you can specify that. And item D here, if you're using your students' institutional email addresses, which I presume almost all of you are there any requirements that PRA needs to follow to make sure that your emails are not blocked or tagged as spam? For the most part, you may need the information from PRA regarding either the IP addresses or the from email address to be able to whitelist those in your system. But if you have requirements beyond that, please make sure to let us know that so that we can get you that information that you need as quickly as possible to make sure that you're able to launch this successfully. All right, brings us to E, so the survey package. So the number of students invited to participate. This is the standard sample plus the special sample. So I think I had 3,000 students back there, if memory serves me correct. So that's what I'll be selecting here today. Optional additions. So these are a number of things that you can get as extras to customize the way that you may want to administer your administration of CUSC. So more than 2 draws for incentives. One thing I do want to clarify, that doesn't mean more than 2 winners. That means more than 2 unique time points for draws. So if you are doing a weekly draw throughout, every single week through your administration, you're doing a draw for winners, then that counts. But if you're doing 10 winners at the end, that doesn't count as more than 2 draws, right? So I just want to clarify that means time points for draws, not number of winners. So I said that I just wanted to have the information at the end for drawing the winners. So I'm going to say no here. I don't need more than 2 draws because I'm just going to have the one at the very end. Additional reminder emails. The invitation and 2 email reminders are included in the standard package. So if you want something in addition to those 3 emails, you can select that here for $150 per reminder. I'm going to select 1 today. We traditionally do 4 for ours, and we'll stick with that here. But that option is available to you to go up to 2 additional reminders there as well. Will you be asking additional questions? These are custom questions for your institution. If you're participating as one of the collaboration groups, so either the Alberta Collaboration Group or the MPHEC, the additional questions does not mean those questions that your collaboration group is asking. So this is questions that are specific that you're adding to your institution. If there's a specific service, maybe that you want to get some information on, a specific priority or planning thing that you need information on, then you can add that here as well. And if you say yes, this little note comes up as a friendly reminder, and it says, please send your questions to admin@CUSC-CCREU.ca at least 4 weeks prior. And it gives this date, which is your requested survey start date. So we just want to make sure that we have time to review your questions, to make sure that they fit within the scope, and to make sure that there's no copyright reasons or any legal reasons why we can't ask those questions. As well, the team who reviews those questions is a really thoughtful group, and they may come back as well, even if your questions are totally allowable and fine, with some helpful suggestions for you to consider as well. So that's an option for you. And just a reminder that it's $150 per question, and question here being defined as things that require specific unique programming. So if you have a question that maybe only has one, top level words, but has a whole bunch of sub items. Those depending on how you've structured it, those sub items might be viewed as additional questions because they require additional programming on each one. So just something to keep in mind as you're structuring it. And if you have questions as you're designing it, always get in touch with us at that email here so we can give you more information. Collaboration data and report. So if your institution is participating either in one of those two collaboration groups, the Alberta or the MPHEC, or if you're creating your own collaboration group, again, if you're creating your own collaboration group, this is something that you need to do the effort to recruit other members into your collaboration group to do so. So I'm going to select none for right now. And then we've got some optional additional reports and services. So these are additional things that you can choose to purchase. The information for them is found in the procedures manual. And again, that section is linked on all of these. So there's the comparison report, which allows you to compare to a specific subset of member institutions to do that within certain requirements, of course, following the data licensing and membership agreement stipulations. There's the national and CUSC group tests of significance. That is something that you can purchase that basically runs a significance test against the master data for all the participating institutions so that you don't have to do that work. So if you really want that information and you know that just at your institution you're going to be strapped for time once you get this, and that would be really helpful to you, then absolutely you can get that. The executive report, that's a narrative report that gets written on your results. It's why it's a little bit more expensive. It's because it's custom written text for your institution. That's option for you there. And then you can choose to have PRA categorize your open-ended responses at a cost of 65 cents per completed open-ended question. So per response option there, and you can have those categorized for you so that maybe you can make quicker use of that data. So that option is available for you there. F10, so all the options that we sell are done electronically. We don't by default send paper-bound copies of reports. If you would like a paper-bound report of any of these, the cost is $50, and you would just indicate that here. Just make sure that you're asking for a paper-bound copy of a report that you've indicated above. Now, the master report and institution long report, those come standard as part of your survey package as a member. But if you're asking for a paper copy of the comparison report, make sure that you've also asked for us to produce a a comparison report for you as well. F11, so if your institution would like to use its student portal or learning management system, that option is available to you there. That will provide you with a set of links that you can put in your learning management system or student portal to allow students to do that in addition to the email. So for some institutions that they found that particularly successful as another way to reach students, particularly as we often hear that students don't really read their emails. So if that's something that you would like to do, it's at an option of $150 there for you. F12, so we're doing an experiment this year. At CUSC, we are big believers in data-informed decision-making. And so we often run experiments to help inform how we're going to be changing or potentially changing the survey and our practices going forward. So this year we're experimenting with adding a prefer not to answer on a number of questions to see if that either impacts response rate or data quality. There's absolutely no cost to doing this. And you just choose whether you're going to be participating as 10%, 100% of your sample, or you're not going to be participating at all. And that decision is entirely up to you. If you do choose to participate, those who are randomly selected to be included in the experiment will be flagged in your data file so that you'll know. And this will just allow you to see as well the impact on data quality or response rate that, that having this prefer not to answer option may have. And finally, we've got here the course delivery and assessment module questions. So if this is a module that you would like to participate in, you would just, you don't need to select anything here. I guess I need to select an option here. But if you don't want to participate in that, you can just opt out by clicking that here. And again, just like it was linked back on the taking part page, but if you again want to be reminded of what questions are included in that, you can see them at this link. And there is no cost to the module. The module is free of charge, and we think it would provide you with some significant value. So that option is there for you to make that decision on whether you want to participate or not. And then finally, if you have any additional comments about your registration process or you have specific requirements, feel free to indicate them here. And then finally, just a notice about withdrawal that we require 2 weeks notice. That if your institution withdraws with less than 2 weeks notice, there may be a fee associated with that to cover the cost of programming the survey and the emails that PRA has also done on your behalf. So membership fees are not refundable and not transferable because of the way membership works. So just want to point out that note about withdrawal. And then finally, this registration form will give you a nice overview of everything. Make sure that you review this carefully, and then you can submit that at the end. Also, do make sure to submit it at the end. This page isn't just a summary for your own information's sake. It is important that you submit this as well. Flip back to my presentation for a moment and go through a few more things for us here. And I'll only have a few more minutes, and then I should end with plenty of time for questions if there are things that haven't yet been answered by Glenn in the chat here. All right, sample submission. So this is one point that I know people have a lot of questions about. So the standard sample, this is only first entry programs and direct entry or non-transfer students. The idea is here that to grab students who are coming either direct from high school or CEGEP. And so the procedures manual spells it out fairly carefully and clearly, I think, that we're looking for students who have graduated from CEGEP or high school in the past 2 years. I also want to say that we recognize that not all institutions are able to capture this information from their student information system clearly and easily. So if this is information that is difficult for you to get to actually pinpoint whether or not a student was within the last 2 years, we understand. That's okay. We just ask that you make a reasonable and your best effort in getting a sample that conforms to it. But certainly we do want you to only include students who are from first entry programs or direct entry programs. So not including education, for instance, that you may take afterwards, not including medicine or things like that, that in some jurisdictions are undergraduate programs. Those are not meant to be included as part of this survey here. These are programs that can be entered into directly from high school or CEGEP. And include both your full-time, your part-time, students who are in province, out of province, Canadian residents, international, even your on and off campus and your distance learning students can all be included in your standard sample. But exclude independent students, your special students, certificate, diploma, continuing education students. Those would all be excluded as well. The procedures manual as well says to exclude undeclared students. That may depend a little bit on your institutional context. So I know at Carleton, we have a BA undeclared, which is kind of a general BA. I would include those because those are a direct entry program. By undeclared, there we mean students who aren't really in a declared program of any kind. And at Carleton, we treat that undeclared major as a specific degree program. So just something to consider if you might be wondering about that wording. And again, the usual sample is 1,000, but the choice is yours for more or less depending on what fits your needs. Again, I mentioned the special sample, and this could include students who don't meet the standard sample criteria, but you really want to include them to get information about them. You're welcome to do that, but we ask that you include them as a special sample, and may include oversamples as well if you're looking to get more students from a specific population to your survey. And then there's an administrative sample, which mostly I think just applies to Alberta, so we're not going to talk too much about that today. Sample submission, so here's the format. It's pretty straightforward. We do ask that you review this in enough time so that you can get this information to us. There is an ID field. We ask that you don't send us the actual student ID, but just make a custom ID for these students that you would keep to be able to match back afterwards. The information is here for you. I think it's fairly straightforward. And again, do the best information that you're able to give us on this. And as well, you can include up to 10 optional fields, which you will get back as part of your response set. These are not included in the master data set, so these will not be shared with as part of the master data set that goes out to all member institutions. Neither will any student identifying information from these fields be included as well. So if you, for instance, maybe want to include the faculty that they come from, or maybe you have some student demographics that you would like to include so that you can match that up later, you're welcome to include that as optional fields that only you will receive back. And again, just a reminder to send this to PRA at least 1 week prior to your launch date. If you're not able to send it to 1 week prior to launch date, definitely get in contact with PRA and see about whether or not you're able to meet your launch window. The campaign preparation, so this is the other part that you need to do as part of your preparation. So maybe you've selected additional questions. Those need to be submitted 4 weeks in advance of your launch date. Whitelisting, make sure to reach out to your IT department to make sure that your server is done. As well, we can set up a test for you as well to make sure that the whitelisting is working as anticipated for you. Just make sure that you give Nicholas at PRA plenty of time to make sure that that is able to be done with sufficient options to customize that and get that fixed. If you need a privacy agreement with PRA, that's something you'll want to get started with shortly after registering. And then you'll need to work out your invitation messages, customizing maybe what you want to say, getting approval from your signatory who it's going out from at your institution, things like that. As well as your initial message, maybe your reminder messages that you will want to customize. If you're getting the custom links for your student portal, we don't provide resources for how you might integrate that in, so we leave that up to you. So depending on if you've done that before, or if you've never done that before, it may take you some significant time working with your IT department to implement that solution for you. You'll want to work out your incentives and figure that out, because that will be typically included as part of your invitation message. We certainly recommend putting that in, as that is a good draw for getting students to participate. And then thinking about what internal promotion you're going to be doing. If you're going to be doing any general advertising, if you're going to be doing in-class promotions, any sort of pre-survey promotion, it certainly is a helpful thing that you can do to bolster your response rate, but isn't a requirement, but something you'd want to consider. The invitation messages and reminder messages are automatic. Just as a note, as standard practice and as good practice, only students who don't complete the survey will receive a reminder messages, and students are able to opt out of future messages by through a process that is included in the invitation messages. That you can get these, again, the custom links for your student portal. And PRA will provide you with the selected students for your incentive if you're using incentives based on the timing that you selected in your registration form. That brings us then, so that would take you through the administration period. The last bit would be reports. These are typically released mid-June. You'll get both a master report, which highlights the national trends. You'll get your institutional long report, which is an overview of all the questions that are part of the survey, comparing yourself to the groups and the national trends. And you'll get your data file and your master data file if you are a member as well. The electronic reports are put through an FTP site that is secure for you, that only you have access to for your files. There's Excel and HTML versions of tables, there's PDF and Word versions of the documents, and a PowerPoint version as well for a short report as well. And then there's the data files, which are available to you depending on what you ordered. And they come in both Excel and SPSS, and there's a Tableau workbook as well for member institutions that you can use if you're a Tableau user. And it's quite slick and quite neat. And every time I see Glenn use it, it makes me jealous that I'm not a Tableau user yet. And then traditionally we have a results webinar. This is something that Nicholas from PRA puts on, and just looks at the national trends. It's something that I find fascinating, and it's great perspective to have. And so as you are pouring through your data, presumably over the summer that you would get, that's something we'd encourage you to participate in. And even if you decide not to participate, you're welcome to attend our webinar and find out more about the trends in higher education that we're seeing by this survey. So with that, as promised, I've left us 10+ minutes here for questions and hopefully answers. I know that I can see that there's a little 8 on the chat thing, so I presume Glenn has been answering and fielding questions. So I don't know if there's anything at this point that people would like me to address or clarify. So maybe I'll just open it up.
The 8 that are in there are mostly me just blathering on about Alberta things. I did want to point out that the administrative sample is actually an invention of Tyler's.
Right.
It allows you to put staff entries in your sample list so that you can see when the invitation emails come out and the reminders go out. They're excluded from any further processing, but it's a handy way of just monitoring what's going on with that email campaign.
I don't know why I blanked on that. I put that in a different survey this morning. Yeah, it's a particularly useful thing. That way you don't have to be emailing Nicholas and say, hey, did our email reminder go out? You can have that administrative sample, which I love. I don't know why I blanked on it today. I love it. I think it's a great thing. I think it's a good practice. And we have that available to you so that you can put yourself in there and you'll see it. You'll get the email reminders that come up. And yeah, I would strongly recommend that. It's particularly useful. Thanks for reminding me, Glenn. Are there any other questions or anything I can clarify for people today? Just give people a moment in case you're shy and typing something in the chat. Just want to give people one minute here. All right, well, not seeing anything. I hope this was useful to you. As always, if you have additional questions for us, the CUSC general email is there. Please reach out to Linda Cup, who is our projects coordinator, is here today as well. She is fantastic and incredibly helpful and incredibly responsive, as is Nicholas from PRA. Both wonderful people to work with, and so delighted to have them both here today and are particularly helpful individuals. So if you do have questions, do get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you and try and help you make this process smooth for you. So I hope this was helpful. Do get in touch if you need anything. And thank you so much for joining today. It was great to have you all here. So thanks so much and take care, everybody.